So good evening with all the delays of the sirens and I just had a chavruta beforehand from a friend from the States and trying to explain how it is to live under a siren. And they said like, he doesn't understand how it is that all of a sudden you need to run. And then we had, just as we were finishing our chavruta, we had here's an example of how it is. We had to run, we had to go, and it's living as this moment, something is happening, which really brings us to Yetziat Mitzrayim. And I thought of learning today together the Halachot of Leil HaSeder. Okay, because we learned in the past many times of, if I remember correctly, kashering dishes and other things we have with Pesach, Kitniyot, if I recall correctly, we learned in the past. And I thought now it's time to learn something for Leil HaSeder. And one of the ideas we see in Leil HaSeder is when the ate Korban Pesach, they were ready to go on that moment. Okay, that moment they're ready to go out of Egypt, and it gives us maybe the feeling or the education for the next generations. Geula, redemption might happen in a moment. In a moment, the same as in Egypt, they were sitting in Egypt, and very, very fast, when came the time out to go out of Egypt, it happened very fast. So also today, in our days, when it comes to times of redemption, things might move very fast. And some of the things I think we feel today, right? Maybe moving to the siren, moving to the shelter very fast, but also we can see how the nation has grown rapidly and becomes things change in the world, and Israel all of a sudden becomes an ally of many, many nations, and nations maybe realize, or some of them realize, who's evil and what does that mean, fighting against the evil, and maybe that's the part of Pesach. So I thought today we'll be learning a bit about Leil HaSeder, a bit about the mitzvot of Leil HaSeder. We will not cover everything today. We'll start from the Haggadah, and then B'ezrat Hashem, perhaps if we get to it next week, so we have also the mitzvot of matzah and the 4 cups of wine and maror. So we'll be getting also to those. Okay, so something hopefully new about mitzvah of the mitzvot we have on Leil HaSeder. And the mitzvah we'll discuss today is the Haggadah, the idea of talking about Leil HaSeder. והגדת לבנך ביום ההוא לאמור, בעבור זה עשה השם לי בצאתי ממצרים. Now, the main part of the mitzvah is to tell your children. It says in the pasuk in Parashat Bo, "V'yigadet levincha," you should tell your son on that day. Bayom hahu lemor, ba'avur zeh. People then were pointing at on the Korban Pesach. You can see Korban Pesach. It's something very visual. Hashem did it for me when I left Egypt. So the main part of the mitzvah is telling your children. Now, when we say here children, it means also your children, even if they are 40 years old or 60 years old, but also your grandchildren. And we see in a few places that grandchildren are considered as children. So if you are hosting Leil HaSeder in your house, especially if the parents or the father is in Miluim, but even if he's at home, so there's also a mitzvah of a grandfather to tell his children, but also to tell his grandchildren. And so that's part of the mitzvah. That's maybe the main part of the mitzvah. Besides the mitzvah of telling your children, there's also a mitzvah for each one to remember. Each person to remember. It says in the same parak, זכור את היום הזה אשר יצאתם ממצרים מבית עבדים, כי בחוזק יד הוציא השם אתכם מזה. You should remember this day that when you left Egypt from the house, the home or place of slaves, because Hashem took you out with a mightiness out of Egypt. So there's a mitzvah also to educate your children, but also to remind ourselves. Okay, so as we can see here from the mitzvah, it's not just a mitzvah of knowledge, of teaching. As soon as someone knows once, he doesn't need to know it again, right? If you learn math, and you know how much is the 2 times 6, okay, so that's 12. As soon as you learn that once, there's no point in reminding yourself that 2 times 6 equals 12. But in Egypt, the idea of going out of Egypt, there's always a mitzvah to remind ourselves to live the time when we came out of Egypt. And as we mentioned in the beginning, it's not just to remember the past, it's because it affects our present now and the way we go to the future. Okay, so that's maybe the general idea about Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Haggadah of Pesach. We mentioned in the Haggadah that we say the Haggadah when we have matzah and maror in front of us. Okay, in the times of Leil Seder, in the times of the temple, they also had Korban Pesach in front of us. Okay, in front of them. So that's a mitzvah which is specifically on that night of the Seder night. Now, one can ask, one second, every day we have the mitzvah of remembering going out of Egypt. If you've done the Mariv already, so in Mariv you said Kriyas Shema, you recited Shema, and when you recited Shema, so you have the mitzvah of Shema Ve'ahavta, which is accepting Hashem as a king, and then Vayayim Shamo, accepting the mitzvot, and then we have also the mitzvah of the parasha of Tzitzit, which has two things. One is Tzitzit, and the second is remembering that Hashem took us out of Egypt, and that's why we recite this paragraph of Tzitzit in Shema, because by reciting it in Shema, we fulfill the mitzvah of remembering Hashem took us out of Egypt. So we have now a question. If every day of the year we mention and remember that Hashem took us out of Egypt, why is that night different than all nights, right? That's a question of a Seder. What's different than that night compared to all nights? Well, what's special about Leil Seder? Or what should we do different in Leil Seder compared to other nights? What should we do different? And for that, we have a few differences, probably 4 differences. Okay, so the first difference is that in a regular night, we say one pasuk, you should remember Hashem took you out of Egypt, and that's it, you fulfilled the mitzvah. As soon as you mention it, remember it, you fulfilled the mitzvah. On the Seder night, part of the mitzvah is to expand and to tell more and more, as we read in the Haggadah about the sages who were talking about going out of Egypt all of the night until the morning came. Right? So the mitzvah isn't just a 1 second. The mitzvah, it's really a mitzvah you can tell through the whole night. And that gives us when we get to the Seder, some of us try to read the Haggadah fast, and then we get to the meal. But the mitzvah is to make everything out of Leil Seder. Remember Egypt. You sit down around the meal, you can ask questions if people are hungry and they want to get ready to the knedels or to the soup or whatever it is. So after you get to the meal and eat something, then you can ask questions and riddle for the kids and have them talk about Mitzrayim, have us talk about Mitzrayim. But really the idea of the Seder night is not to keep it short. Okay, not to keep it short. That's different. That's the first difference. Another difference is that from the Torah, we don't have the obligation of chinuch, of education. Obviously, it's inherited. It's part of the mitzvah. If one will not teach his children or his grandchildren, they will not know what to do. So obviously, it's obvious that one needs to educate his children. But there's no specific mitzvah of telling your children, besides Limud Torah, besides teaching Torah to the children, here on the Seder night, we have a specific mitzvah of Vehigata Levincha, telling your children. That's the second difference. The third difference is Leil Seder should be more visual, more live. It's in a regular day. I remember going out of Egypt, I'm fine. Leil Seder, as we mentioned in the Haggadah, לא אמרתי לה בעבור שמצה ומרור מונחים לפניכם. When you have matzah and maror in front of you, you can live it. Okay, and then we'll get very soon to the main difference. And then a Seder, there's a mitzvah to say the story in a way of question and answer. That's why the kids ask Panishtana. That's why maybe we have riddles for the kids, for the adults. Okay, that's the four differences. There's another difference is that usually women are exempt from mitzvot which are time-bound. Mitzvah aseh zman grama. Here, in this mitzvah, women are obligated. They are also part of going out of Egypt, so they are also obligated in it. If I want to maybe categorize all of those differences into one thing, one theme, perhaps I'll say, in the regular day, you should remember going out of Egypt. When you remember something, it's something which happened in the past. something which your parents told you, something which your grandparents told you, something that you read in a book. On a regular day, the mitzvah is to remember. On the Seder night, the mitzvah is to live, to feel around you going out of Egypt. Therefore, if you just remember, so as soon as you mentioned, that's it. But if you live the Seder night, so you expand and tell details and hear and more, and you tell to the children, and you have things in front of you because you really live the mitzvah, and you ask questions and answer it. The idea of Leil Seder is to live going out of Egypt. That idea also maybe gets to something else, which I wasn't planning to expand about it today. We'll just mention it very short. When do we say Hallel during the night? On what holiday we say Hallel during the night? And the answer is we never say Hallel during the night. Sukkot, we don't say Hallel during the night. Shavuot, we don't say. Rosh Chodesh, we don't say. Chanukah, we don't say. There's only one night that we say Hallel, although it is night. Only one night. And that's the night of the Seder night. Not only that, usually we do not stop in the middle of Hallel. Yeah, we don't stop. We say Hallel, especially when we say bracha in the beginning and the end. We don't stop in the middle. Here in Leil Seder, not only we stop in the middle of Hallel, we have all the meal, all of the. One can't talk about other things. Obviously, when you eat, so you speak to friends and you talk and you say things to your family. That's the only time in the year that we say Hallel in the night and we make a big break in the middle of Hallel. And the explanation for that is that Hallel of Leil HaSeder isn't remembering something which is in the past. Hallel of Leil HaSeder is singing for something which we are experiencing now. And as human beings, part of the way we experience is food, right? Food that's a very big experience of us. So obviously we eat and we talk in the middle of Hallel because it's we're singing, we aren't reciting Hallel, we're singing Hallel, we're living Hallel. So that's a very important difference between Leil HaSeder and the rest of the night, or the rest of the days and the rest of the night and the rest of the year. Okay, so that's when we get to Leil HaSeder, we should just know that the idea is really to try and live Leil HaSeder. Try and live. That's why some families we usually do a show. Okay, I have a costume I bought on Amazon a few years ago. You still have time for Pesach to buy a costume. I have a costume of Paro. I think I still have a costume of Moses, of Moshe Rabbeinu. We also made with my children a book printed on Amazon, scrolls Haggadah, because we want the people, our kids, to live the Haggadah, that they'll be fine, they'll be happy, they'll find. We have a scroll which goes in our books. So the scroll, like he tells a story. We want people to live the Haggadah of Pesach. Okay, so that's the idea of Leil HaSeder, and perhaps a very, very important halacha. That's a very important halacha. Okay, we have Manishtana, as we said in the beginning. So people, the kids are in it. They sing it. We answer them. I think we got the idea of Leil HaSeder. It's not just storytelling; it's living a story. And perhaps also another aspect we find of living the story, and that also comes to a place of education, of chinuch. In the Torah, we have a few times, 4 times, that the Torah mentions about telling the story to your children. Okay? 4 times. ויהי שלך בנך, ויקימו עליכם בניכם. So 4 times, כי שלך בנך מחר לאמור מזות. 4 times we have in the Torah the halacha, or the mitzvah of telling your children about Pesach. And based on that, based on the 4 places we have in the Torah of telling your children, Chazal identified 4 types of people, as we see in the Haggadah. Keneged arba'a banim dibra Torah. Keneged arba'a banim dibra Torah, and each one how you tell the story to them, how you answer to them. And again, that shows the difference between Pesach and the rest of the nights. Because the rest of the nights, or the rest of the days, just tell a story and that's it. Here, you want someone to live it, and each one feels in a different way. Each one has a different language, and that's why the Torah really insists of each one has his question, and he has a different answer. Okay, so that's about the four children. what do we say in Leil HaSeder? Okay, what do we say in Leil HaSeder? So we have an easy life because we have the Haggadah, which is based on what Chazal wrote in Pesachim, and the Haggadah perhaps also had a few changes when through the times of the temple, and when the temple unfortunately was destroyed. So obviously, parts of the Haggadah were changed because it's not when we didn't have the Pesach in front of us. We have Matzah and Mahor only in front of us. But when one reads the Haggadah and he says all of the Haggadah, so he covers everything. He covers everything, which is what's one supposed to say. Okay, so that covers everything. If one expands, that is even better. Okay, that's even better. The Haggadah more is around 800 years old. It comes from Rav Amram Gaon. So it's around 800 years old from Rav Amram Gaon. Although, as I said, the origins of the Haggadah, already you find them in Chazal, in Masechet Psachim. Okay? We had these questions, we won't get into it now, but people who are soldiers, who have only a few minutes, or the doctors, or people like that, what should they say from the Haggadah? Won't be relevant for us, okay, but there are parts that they can skip. What we should say, I mean, hopefully we won't have any war by then, but if we have a war and we have to go to a shelter, so you go to a shelter, and you talk about the Haggadah, and you come back and continue from the place where you stopped. It's not like Shmoneh Esrei that now talking in the middle has a problem. Okay, so that should be obvious, but it's also always good to say. In the Haggadah, and that's also, you can say, maybe part of being a living story that you live. A story. If you look at a story, always the story starts, or relatively in the beginning, there'll be something hard, and there's a process that you overcome it, or the hero of the story goes through something, and he grows from it. And that's also we find in the Haggadah. And we have a very important role in the Haggadah. מתחיל בגנות ומסיים בשבח. Okay, מתחיל בגנות ומסיים בשבח. We start from the hard places where we were, and we end with the shvach in the elevated places we went to. And there's an argument, there's a machloket, when we say מתחיל בגנות, we start from the harder places. There's a machloket between Rav and Shmuel in the Gemara. What do we talk about, the gnut and shvach? Are we talking about the physical process we did from slaves into free people? That's Shmuel. And the Rav says it's a gnut of our forefathers worshipped idols, and we, Baruch Hashem, now we believe in one God, in Hashem Echad. And we do like both of them, also from an idea which we believe that both of those processes are tied to each other. So when we say Matchil Begnut Umsayim B'Shvach, we should just know we are starting here with two stories, the spiritual story and the physical story, and both stories are connected to each other. Okay. I think that one of the reasons we start from the harder places, it's not just something of remembering, but also something of living. Okay, and in our life, I think if we ask any one of us, we'll ask, "Is your life great?" And I'm sure we'll say yes, life is great. But then we'll ask, "Is your life really great? Do you have a way to grow?" And the answer is yes, we have a way to grow. We have it, and it's fine. Okay, it's fine. We aren't in the maximum where we can be, because if one would have been in the maximum, so there's nothing, no way to grow. He finished his mission in the world. Part of the idea, I think, in the Haggadah, is we start from the lower places of us to show that yes, it's fine. You grow, you learn more, you overcome challenges you have in life, and from Leil HaSeder we learn from all of the life, all for the day-to-day ideas. You have challenges, and okay, grow. You have a siren, go down to the shelter, and come back to the shir, and we'll continue the shir. Okay, so that's part of the idea of it's not just of a historical story, it's something which is happening right now to each one of us. Each one of us has places where he's more challenged, where he doesn't want to face them. Sometimes he doesn't even want to mention them. But that guy that tells us, no, look at those dark places of yours. Open your eyes, look at them, and believe that when you look into those dark places of yours, you can have redemption. You can really grow up. So that is, I think, part of the message we see in the Haggadah. We have we mentioned two more things in the Haggadah that we mentioned. One is the 10 Makot, Aseret Makot, the 10 plagues, the Aseret Makot, which also the Torah really describes them in quite long verses. And also the Haggadah, when we get to it. So the Haggadah, we say Elu Eser Makot, and we say Dam, Tzfardea, Kinim, Arov, and we also have a Detzach, Hadash Be'achav, and we tip a bit of the wine out. Okay, so we really the Torah expands about them, the Haggadah expands about them, and I think what we can learn about it is maybe two things which are, I'll say, complete each other. One is that the number 10 always shows something which is more whole. Like we need a minyan. So minyan is 10 people, right? It's 10 people form a minyan. And so 10 is something always which has something holy in it. The Mishnah in Avot, in the 5th chapter of Avot, says, "Be'asara ma'amarot nivra ha'olam." World was created with 10 sayings of Hashem. There's in the Kabbalistic world, there's 10 sfirot. Okay, 10. There's no good translation for sfirot. You can say counting, but it's not the best translation. So 10 always shows of something whole and spiritual. But 10 also always shows of something which is one and another one and another one. Things don't happen in one day. Okay, and the redemption we sometimes want. Why don't we win Iran now? Like, why doesn't Mashiach come now? And now and say he's coming now, but there's a lot of stages of coming. First, we build a state, and then we build slowly, it's coming. But each day, the Mashiach is coming here again and again. And I think that's an idea we can see from the Asara Ma'amarot. On one hand, Aseret Makot. It's not just one Makkah. There's 10, so it's a process. On the other hand, it's something which is whole and holy, and everything we're doing which brings us closer to redemption, it's part of this holy presence of Hashem in the world. The last thing we'll mention in the Haggadah is what we say about Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel says, "Kol shelo amar shlosha dvarim elu bepesach, lo yatsa yedei chovato." Everyone who doesn't mention the three things, these three things on Pesach, didn't fulfill his obligation of the Haggadah. Okay, and what are they? Pesach Matzah Maro. It's Pesach Matzah Maro. It doesn't mean the three words Pesach Matzah Maro. It means the idea of what the Haggadah afterwards continues about Pesach Matzah Umaro. Yeah, Pesach Matzah Maro. Each one of them signifies or has a spiritual idea of something else in it. And first, as we mentioned, in the times of the temple, they had Korban Pesach in front of them. And when you say Pesach Matzah Maro, you live it. You see the Pesach. You can smell or taste the Pesach. You really have it in front of you, and you taste the Maro, you taste the Matzah. And from that, you can learn about Pesach. And so that you can learn about Pesach. So what do we learn from each one of them? Okay, what do we learn from the Pesach and from the Matzah and from the Maro? Let's start with the Maro. That's probably the easiest. What do you learn from the Maro? The Maro is when the bitter times we have. Okay, we need to remember also not just the glory of going out of Egypt, but also the bitter time that brought us to going out of Egypt. So that's why we have Maro. And through history, we had, unfortunately, a lot of bitter times, a lot of bitter moments. And that is part of the story of the redemption, is also knowing how the Maro brings us and makes us a better people and a better nation. Matzah, as we know, it's the bread of emunah, or the bread of redemption, or the bread of being free. Okay, so the opposite of Maro, which is the bitter times, Matzah is more the being just under Hashem, without any someone around us, any physical nation. We are free. Okay, so Matzah resembles the being under Hashem. Okay, lechem nama de menuda, the bread of emunah, the bread of freedom. Okay, on one hand, it's lechem oni, but on the other hand, almost all of the korbanot that were brought in the temple out of the plants, menachot, almost all of them are matzah. Okay, so matzah shows maybe a free nation which is connected to Hashem. Pesach. Okay, so here we have Pesach. Why do we call it Korban Pesach? Asher Pasach al Batei Bnei Israel b'Mitzrayim, v'nukpot Mitzrayim v'natenu Yitzil. Pesach is like skipping over, a Passover. Okay, Passover. So Korban Pesach resembles the uniqueness or the special place of Am Yisrael. Therefore, only Jews are allowed to eat from Korban Pesach. Only Jews who have Brit Milah, only circumcised Jews can eat from Korban Pesach. So we have here the connection of Pesach, which is the nation of Israel, Matzah, which is Hashem appearing in the world and making us free, and that comes after the maror, after the bitterness, which brings us to the place where we have today. So those three things are actually the part of going out of Egypt. It was bitter. Hashem came out and took us out, redeemed us out from Egypt, and made us a unique nation, a special nation, a holy nation. Asher Pasach al Batei Bnei Israel. He passed over the houses of the nation of Israel. So here we touch very, very fast the main ideas of the Haggadah of Pesach. When we get to Pesach, hopefully you'll expand more than what we said today. And the main, if I'll ask or I'll say, what's the main message I want to be from this class is Pesach is living. Leil HaSeder is living Leil HaSeder. Try to live Leil HaSeder. Make it live. Each family the way you have. That's the idea of Pesach. And we wish you, everyone, a happy Pesach, Pesach of Redemption.